back and welcome to my spoiler review for Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson, the fifth and final installment in his first arc of the Stormlight archive. If you haven't read this book, if you don't want to know absolutely anything, please don't watch this, but the title kind of suggests that it's going to have spoilers, so watch at your own risk. Firstly, a brief synopsis, and then I'll jump into all of my thoughts as I was reading, so you're going to hear me jump around in the book. But the synopsis is that Dalinar challenged Odium to a contest of champions in 10 days' time. And now, after Taravangian's ascension to becoming Odium, the Radiants are pushed to the edges of desperation in all of the border wars that Taravangian is pressing for his advantage before the deal is finalized at the end of those 10 days. So everyone is stressed, everyone is worried about their survival, and that's where the book starts. Firstly, I couldn't believe that it was a 1,300-page novel. I gave it 4 stars, so I enjoyed it, but I felt like I was being held back a bit, and the pace really did me dirty. There were also a few different character moments in here that I didn't like, but there were equally some things that I really loved, so I'm going to talk about both. But before I start, I was talking to my husband Dave, and he described this book in such a perfect way that I need to mention it. And he said, reading this book felt like being edged for 3 weeks, and I just fully agree with that statement. But now getting into my beloved characters, starting with Adolin, and I noticed that at the beginning or close to the beginning of the book, after Adolin and Shallan had slept together in the shower and that kind of thing, when they said I love you, it very much felt like a goodbye. And if you know the ending of the book, then I was right and I was frustrated. What I did like though was Kaladin's note to himself about Shallan, and that if he and Shallan got together, both of their mental health wouldn't complement each other and they would end up spiraling. And I was like, oh, it's like his baby steps to becoming a therapist. I was really proud of him. Jumping to Szeth though, I found his journey agonizing. The only part I liked about it was that Kaladin went with him. As a character, I guess he was interesting, but I just didn't have that emotional interest in him. Like, I didn't feel attached to him. I definitely appreciated parts of his story, but a lot of his flashbacks felt really drawn out and getting repetitive. And I actually felt pretty similarly about Navani and Dalinar, and how when they were in the spiritual realm, it felt like their interactions with the visions were also really repetitive. They could have been condensed down, I feel, and it would have not only reduced the page count, but increased the pace of the book. And when I was reading each of these parts, I just felt like it was really slowed down, and I was actually like checking my watch, checking the amount of pages I was reading. So it really brought me out of the story, reading consistently different chapters of flashbacks and different chapters of visions. I was like, can we quicken the pace here a little? The interludes have also just never been something I've been super invested in either. So when the interludes came in this book, I was like, yeah, they're just like, they're okay, but they're nothing that I'm super interested in. I wish they were explained more in terms of the world building, because Risen, for example, and the Dawn Shards, that part interested me, but it just felt like a little bit of a Cosmere dangling carrot, and then it wasn't really explained in as much detail as I was hoping it would be. Like, dumb it down for me. I'm not stupid, but I also won't read into the subtext because I don't know a lot of detail about the Cosmere. I only know what has been presented to me. I'm not on all the wikis or anything. I don't know the behind the curtain stuff, so you need to present it to me like I'm a dumb reader. Not like I'm a dumb reader, I guess. Like, I can understand different points that are being made, but I just wish it was a little bit more prolific. And then also the 7,000, 8,000 year time skips into the past with Tanavast, like, it was cool for world building sake, but whenever I saw a chapter that was in capital letters, I rolled my eyes like, oh no, not again. It was fine, but I think I'm just being nitpicky when I say I wish it was over faster, because I wanted to be back with the characters that I had emotional investment in, that I'd spent 4 books reading about, and Tanavast wasn't one of those. And I know I've just said that I didn't really love reading about Szeth, but I did love that Kaladin went with him, and I really appreciated Kaladin's journey and how that built up his character. It was a dynamic that I really appreciated, his need of wanting to protect people, not letting it control him, and allowing him to step back and let Szeth make his own choices. I felt like that was such an important step in his character growth and becoming not only a therapist, but a better version of himself as well. I really enjoyed that aspect. Overall, I really loved the exploration of mental health with a bunch of different characters and the human experience. I just really enjoy reading about that because, again, it makes my emotional investment in the characters that much more strong. Even though in some parts of the book, it did feel like those elements were a bit over-explained in some cases. And I feel like when an author gets quite popular, it is harder for people to push back and then edit down their work. And it feels like this book was really a victim of that. Like it could have been whittled and not lost the intent or the purpose or the impact of the story. It just feels like it was long for the sake of being long, because the other books have been long, so you need to outdo them, right? The two mains are my favorites anyway, so Kaladin and Adolin. I loved Kaladin's mental health journey to becoming a therapist and helping others, and I also loved Adolin's journey as well, and how he rejected oaths, he prefers promises, and he does not like the restrictions that oaths force on the Radiants. Adolin's fight scene at the end of his journey in Azir was probably the pinnacle of the book for me. It was one of my favorite parts ever, and it felt like a final boss battle. It was just epic in my mind. And the only two parts in this book that I teared up in were Adolin related. So the first one is when Notum comes to support Adolin on the battlefield of Azir. The other pinnacle moment with Adolin was when he realized that this loyal soldier that was with him and protecting him on the battlefield, this soldier was loyal to Adolin because in Oathbringer, Adolin had saved his son, and that just made me emotional as well. What I dislike is that my main trio, my three faves, so Shallan, Adolin, and Kaladin, were all divided by the end, which was ridiculous to me. At the start of the book, they all promised that they would get together and have a drink, and now they're at opposite ends of the earth. Kaladin is literally a herald, so like, how is he supposed to come back? I'm sure that they will reconnect eventually, but just the fact that Shallan and Adolin are in separate places and Stormlight doesn't exist anymore, so she can't easily get back to him. Like, she's surely got a purpose in the Cosmere in general. So I'm looking forward to where those storylines go, but I'm frustrated that they're separate for now. For now, I hope they can come back together, but I just don't know how they will. A character that I do not like though is Yasna, and while I don't actively dislike her, I also just don't find her interesting enough to care all of the time. Although in the other books, it feels like she's had some development and some impact in the plot, whereas in this one, it felt like Sanderson had too many point of view characters or too many mains, and you just didn't really know what to do with them all. And so it felt like Yasna's storyline was really just sidelined. Renarin's development though was really brought to the forefront of the story, and I did really enjoy his development and his coming out, especially his interest in R'lain, and R'lain also having his own goals related to his heritage and his peoples and his history. I really liked their storyline and how it worked in tandem and how their goals united at the end. I just really liked them. There was such a surprise in this book. And I did very briefly mention Shallan, and she did have a cool reveal moment where her mother was a herald, and that makes me wonder at the future longevity of Shallan and then Shallan's brothers as well, and then, you know, her and Adolin's future baby, because, you know, when she was talking at the end of the book, she was, I think, reflecting on not being able to see Adolin anytime soon, and it had been 2 months, I think, since Odium and Honor had combined. It's been 2 months, and Shallan like clutched her belly, and I was like, oh yeah, of course she's pregnant. Like, I hate the surprise pregnancy trope, but I like how Sanderson didn't overdo it at the end. I can respect him for that. In all honesty, I think it did end well, even though I do have some gripes with it. My major gripe is coming, so I'll mention it shortly, but I honestly thought that I would be more emotional, especially with Dalinar dying. It felt like he had this moment of saying goodbye to everybody, and then he died off page. So it felt like it was a bit nonchalant, not nonchalant, but not as cataclysmic as I expected it to be. I also found that aging up Gav and Gav being the champion a little bit undermining as well. It seemed like it could be a cool plot twist, and I can see why people would enjoy it, but the fact that Navani brought him out of the spiritual realm and then Odium switched him at the last minute and Navani didn't notice, it just puts a bad taste in my mouth. I feel like that could have been executed better. And then Moash. Everyone hates Moash. I thought, honestly, Moash would have a little bit more significance in this book than he had, because it felt like he just had an impact of the Mistborn magic system and then appeared more powerful than before. He kills Leighton, which I felt like it was just a repeat of Teft and Kaladin in the previous book, but for Sigzil's benefit for his characterization. And so instead of making me upset, it just made me righteously angry. I was like, why are you doing this again? Why is nobody actually addressing Moash in this thing? It just felt unnecessary, and like Moash was built up across the previous books. And then again, like Yasna was almost sidelined, like Sanderson either didn't know what to do with him or had plans for him later. So he was like, hey, here's Moash. Also, he's going to stab someone and then disappear again. It just didn't feel like it had the right gravity to it. Hopefully now that Kaladin's a herald, he can come back to Rosha and kick Moash's butt. That's what I'm hoping for. Some epic battle in the future. But anyway, that is how I feel about Wind and Truth, I have a lot more little nitpicky gripes than I thought I did, but when I wrote them out, I was like, oh, there's quite a few here. So I ended up giving the book, like I said, 4 stars, and hopefully when I reread it eventually in the far future, I might actually enjoy more things about it and appreciate more things about it. But the first time through, I really didn't love it as much as I was hoping I did. Obviously, I still enjoyed it. I still love my characters. I still had a great time with a lot of them. So I do like the book, but I just wish it did a few things differently and it minimized some stuff to help with the pace. But let me know if you agree or disagree, or if you've got other things that you want to discuss, because I'd be interested to know what I missed or what characters you like versus what characters I like. But thank you so much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed, but I'll talk to you in another video. Thank you again for watching. Bye.